Which profession attracts the worst kinds of people? I'm a casino dealer. People losing money brings out the worst qualities in them. Especially when I deal high limit games. Plus the pit boss supervisors won't throw a person out who is literally spending thousands. Doesn't matter what they do or say. The casino doesn't want to lose those kinds of patrons. They're catered to. They can be so awful to the dealers. The job has made me look at humanity in a completely different light lol. Pro relationship tip. Bring a date to the casino and see how they treat the dealer if they are losing. You'll see what kind of person they really are. I have about 10 years of experience in the industry. Are you gonna let me win? Don't you wanna make any money? Stop being so hot. You took all my money and now I have to go take more out of the ATM because of you. The service here sucks. I can never get any comps or free drinks. I never get blackjack. Just had 3 in the last 6 hands. You always have a 20. I never win at this casino. Gives someone a large side bet hit you see once every few days. I'm still down buddy, give me another one of those and this $1 is yours. I need like 5 more of those in a row and I'm out of here. Doesn't give any signals on blackjack. You know what I'm doing buddy? Doubles on 2 5s and gets a 5 versus your 9. No, I wanted to split. Stupid dealer, what were you thinking? Where are the $5 blackjack tables? $10 is way too expensive for me. Sits down, plays one hand. Where is the drink? Girl dealer, can you call them for me? I've been sitting here 45 minutes. I'm thirsty. It's literally the S in different variations every day. You hear the same S every day, it's just slightly altered. Stockbrokers. I have some friends who are stockbrokers. I love them, but man, they are some bull S artists. And not like, oh, they're a good salesman and could sell you anything. No, it's like they make S up as they go along and try to sound confident in what they say. I have met a couple people who were successful, lifelong stockbrokers. To be a successful, lifelong stockbroker, you actually have to like what you do. They all had crazy eyes. Each and every one. Funny enough, my course book for college has said this: good lawyers are always busy. They should always have more work than they can do. Bad lawyers tend to become politicians, so there's some social benefits to keeping lawyers busy. The book is about operating systems. I befriended a guy in county jail, the only person willing and interested in playing Scrabble in a room full of 50+ guys. He was kind, giving, incredibly smart and cultured, and I just assumed he was in for something like a dweeb or the like. On my way out, I was in holding with another guy who was in the pod with us, and he informed me that David was about to stand trial for molesting his 3 daughters, aged 5, 9 and 12. He got 12 years. It's been about that long. Wonder if he made it out alive. I was a correctional officer, and the people who were in for the worst crimes were always the nicest, most respectful inmates and looked very normal, whatever normal is really. I think that's what was always really creepy. My mum worked in a prison. She said that a lot of the men and therefore sex offenses against children were looking for jobs like driving ice cream vans, dressing as Santa at shopping centers, etc., as they liked kids sitting on their laps, etc. Apparently it's way more common than people would think. Sex offenders are notoriously well behaved. My stepmother, social worker, said when she was younger she would be relieved to have sex offenders assigned to her cause she knew she would have an easier time working with them. Not easier as in their overall case, just that they would be polite, on time, compliant, etc. I worked for a major after-school childcare organization and went through a lot of child abuse prevention, CAP, trainings. A big thing about potential offenders is that they want access to vulnerable children, and there's a lot of jobs and occupations that give access to children. We had to through extensive background checks, and even in our interview questions there were hidden questions that could raise red flags. I say hidden because they may look like a normal question, but we would look for certain answers that would potentially make us not hire them. Best way to protect your children is to limit unsupervised access to children. Rarely is it some mysterious man in a shady van. Most kids are abused by people close to them, family members, friends, parents, instructors, teachers, coaches. We could never be alone with children, always had to have other staff with us. Hollywood producer, it seems. Over and over and over. Okay, so here's some real tea. I am a Hollywood producer. It's not great. There are a lot of really effed up cutthroat people. A lot of those at the very top have treated people very poorly. I'm going to cite the Wild West of reality TV production. However, I have also worked with some pretty cool executives who just wanna make cool s. But overall, I heard someone explain it once that the problem with Hollywood is that everyone in the industry is always looking for a new job. And since everyone is competing for that next movie show season, you may love your buddy, but F them if they get that spot over you. There are bills to pay. Being established and famous just means you have bigger bills and higher stakes. I've dealt with nationally known producers directors a number of times, and many in my city and state. The producers at Katie Couric's talk show, Oprah's producers, and Montel Williams, if anyone remembers him. He and his producers were very ethical. But not the other two. The other two TV episodes, the producers lied through their teeth about some terrible stuff. The shows were about my daughter's murder and I asked them to do an education piece about teen dating violence prevention. They agreed and then never did it. That was my entire reason for doing the shows. Then the most recent episode showed some crime scene photos that I wasn't aware they could get that even I hadn't seen. It was just gutting for a lot of people. I'd kept the severity of what physically happened to my daughter a secret because no one needs to have that in their mind. The producer-director promised not to show them, so I did the on-camera interview. They showed so much awful stuff and people were mad at me because they thought I supplied the photos and horrific details of what happened. Never again. I work in Hollywood. These days trading sex for favors is way less common than it used to be. Producers can be really hard ass, but in their defense, they are the ones who have to keep the project on time and budget while the actors and directors want 6 more takes. The executives that run MLMs. They're all bullies and manipulators. The worst kind of people that will tell you that your brother's funeral is a good place to recruit investors. A good friend of mine is currently in deep. Started as just doing it for the savings, but of course that didn't last long. The sad thing is she is not that kind of person at all. Nowhere even close. She is religious though, which I've noticed seems to have a correlation with MLMs. A lot of women in MLMs are from religious families' backgrounds. My friend has genuinely been brainwashed. We were so close, I watched her go through the whole process. She was my best friend. We don't talk much now because this thing has kind of taken over her life. But she genuinely believes the lie and is in total denial and thinks she is doing good for people by recruiting them. I used to try and talk her around. Then it got to the point where I could see I would lose her if I kept bringing it up. I just keep hoping she'll walk away. They are dangerous and damaging. It makes me so sad and angry that I've lost my friend and that she's losing herself to that bulls. Sorry for the rant. I'm a consultant who had those executives as a client and I promise this is correct. When our HR expert told them that they needed a policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the CEO responded that they didn't need anyone in DC telling them how to run their company. Like, the HR expert wasn't even saying they needed it in an ethical way. Just that they needed it to avoid lawsuits. The CEO still refused. So, legally exposing yourself to the libs seems like a pretty awful type of person. In his defense, this is one thing minorities would be better off excluded from. Task failed successfully. One of the best examples of this I remember was about 10 years ago. The actual mayor of the town I lived in was leveraging his political office and reputation as mayor to sell Legal Shield, a particularly nasty MLM that was posing itself as legal insurance. He would actually hold recruitment seminars at his house, along with a couple folks attached to local law firms, and other local old money a-holes he'd managed to rope into this thing. It was such a sham, and I went to one of these seminars with one of my co-workers who was getting involved. After it was over, I told her basically that this was all a scam, and our mayor was a soulless sociopath. She laughed at me, and told me I was too shy to make business contacts, and that I had a bad attitude. About 2 or 3 weeks later, she called me in tears, because our illustrious mayor was poaching all of her clients. I tried not to rub it in too much, but she just kept saying, I should have listened to you. I worked for a long time within the org of an MLM. The executives were some of the worst people I'd ever wish upon the world. They were abusive to their direct employees, fast to sexually exploit their secretaries, and extremely disingenuous to their third parties. Seriously, even if you're a business looking to B2B with an MLM, know that they have no ethics, and writing in ethics codes into contracts is a fool's game. I'm aware of the orgs of many members of the DSA, and none of them are worth doing business with. Every year I contracted for them, they'd send me emails telling me how I should vote in the next election. At one point, someone in upper management considered forcing employees to take pictures of their ballot to prove how they voted. It was utterly disgusting, and I will never, ever do business with an MLM or any other business that could benefit one. It's sick. The lure of a MLM is be your own boss and work from home while promising someone plenty of money. The idea of a fairly easy job where you don't have to punch a time clock or report to some boss, but make enough money to help out in the household. The prime recruit for most MLMs is a housewife looking for a second income for the household because her husband can't provide enough by himself that she doesn't need to work at all, but she doesn't have the skills or education to get a high-paying job herself, or she has to care for a child and can't afford childcare while she works. So, in theory, she can stay home with the kids and sell the MLM crap to her friends, or sell it at fairs and special events, and make enough money to help out or have her own money. Upper middle class and more affluent socioeconomic sectors don't have to worry about that. It's a false promise of easy income and upward mobility. Paparazzi. I don't particularly pay attention to celebrities, but I'll never forget when Paparazzi climbed up the effing fence around Michelle Williams, I think that's her name, it's been a minute, after Heath Ledger, her husband, died, to effing snap photos of a woman grieving her husband who had unexpectedly passed away a matter of days ago. I was pretty deep into my Lil Nacha punk, F mainstream media who cares kinda stage at that time, but I remember feeling such a deep sadness for homegirl that not only did she have to deal with her husband's untimely death and taking care of their kids by herself, she also had to deal with these grimy mother effers trying to make a buck off of photos of her sobbing in her own backyard. Social media has actually defanged them to some extent. If you want to obsess over every aspect of a celebrity life, you don't have to buy the tablets anymore, you can follow them on Twitter. It's really amazing that everyone pretty much universal hates paparazzi, but somehow they stay in business. They're not working for free. We have a culture obsessed with celebrity gossip, but nobody likes to see how the sausage is made. I thought I wanted to be an architect, but then I met a bunch of architects. And architecture students. And architecture professors. And they were pretty much all a-holes. It was weird. I mean, how could it be so consistent? But there you have it. I used to teach in a program that often fed students into the world of architecture. Every semester I would orchestrate one charrette where I would bring in architects to critique student work. No matter how much coaching I did, to both visiting architects and students would feel crushed by the feedback. There were almost always tears. I often hear back from students that it was the most impactful part of our work together. I was briefly in a program in the architecture school at a university I went to, and it was my first time being in an art program with real critiques. You'd get absolutely torn apart, but if you could learn to not take it personally, it was an incredibly fast and accurate way to learn where and how to improve. Still think I have lingering negative effects from it though, but I'm also appreciative of that experience. Nowadays I'd much rather have a scathing critique than a soft one, because soft critiques often feel like a waste of time. Oh, but F the professor I had who told the entire class he thought we were all terrible and would fail at his class and his artists, and who later made us cut up a project to prove a point about how clients will make you adjust your work. His methods produced results but hurt way too many people in the process, and Mo would have been much better off easing up a bit. I majored in architecture for 2 years, and to this day I remember the pretentious, arrogant, almost self-worshipping attitude that career field has. I met an architect back then that said, if he wanted to, he could design a house that would make a married couple get a divorce. Where do these people get off? Edit. For the record, I respect the profession and there are definitely exceptions to the broad generalization in my comment. I have not met every architect, but 9 out of 10 that I have met are a-holes. I've been practicing for about 10 years, and I think the reason is this: in school we are taught to idolize certain architects like Wright and Kahn, but they were objectively terrible people. And the kind of person who excels at gaining that kind of reputation as a charismatic creative tends to be borderline sociopathic. So there is a constant undercurrent of toxic hustle culture and the idea that you should ignore your family for the project. Doubly so if you happen to create a secret second family in the process. Pyramid scheme. Property agents. I have had a few friends that have become realtors later in life. The ones that stayed with it totally changed who they are. After a few years they are hardly recognizable as the same people. Vain, shallow, and 100% of the time they are in character and trying to sell. Had a co-worker I really liked a couple years back. Got tired of hours pay and work hours, so quit and became a realtor. It's so bizarre how it's just become her personality. Her Facebook and Instagram pages are of her in professional attire giving that South Park style professional smile and stance look, and literally all of her posts are about selling houses. I guess I can't be mad at the hustle, but so weird to just ditch your whole personality like that. Sales. Ironically, I am also getting into sales. Spent several years in sales. I made the most money I've ever made in my life. I also lost nearly all respect for the intelligence of the average human. One weird thing in sales is that you start to realize that people aren't as honest with themselves as they think. People are typically not honest and straightforward, so you end up using tactics that manipulate the client to get the job done. It's way easier to sell someone than to convince them to do something right for themselves. People don't want honesty, they want to be sold. We've got our share of grind bros and sociopaths, but they're also the 10% that give the rest of us a bad name. Like the guy on a bike who blows through a red light and people point at them as if they're all cyclists. The rest of the world judges us by the worst. I don't sell anyone something they don't need. B2B, and work with retailers, so in my case it's things for their stores which they will sell through. If I sell them a bunch of stuff they aren't going to move, I might have closed one deal, but I'm not going to land more. If I get them exactly what they need at the best terms available, their turns are good and margins high, which means I'm the guy they call back. What's good for my customer's business is good for mine. This X1000 was in sales for a bit, and after close to 2 months I was burnt out and quit. The people I worked with were just crazy effing people and knew that they were selling useless products to unsuspecting small business owners using shady sales tactics. It's honestly disgusting, and the one and only sale I made resulted in me feeling guilty for a long time. Hell, everyone around me was like, doesn't that feel good? Aren't you happy? The first is the best feeling, yeah nah. My favorite expression was always, there are no altruistic investment bankers. IB is another word for snake oil salesman conjuring up ideas that sound sexy, but bail after the sale. Collecting a big fat commission and leaving you to actually figure out how to make it work and not fail. More than one stroke, two of these great ideas actually create more disruption and mayhem than actually make common sense with true actual synergies. In the meantime, a lot of hard-working people get their lives turned upside down for what? If the investment bank had to offer a guarantee it worked, there would be an entire workforce of IB bankers unemployed permanently. As a 911 dispatcher for about 13 years, I will say I've seen my fair share of crappy cops who've chosen that profession to be bullies and abuse their power. However, I've known way more officers who actually do it for the right reasons. Who actually care about people and want to make a difference. Sadly, the media only seems to show the bad officers, and never the good ones. There's such a bias against police, and it breaks my heart for the truly good men and women who risk their lives every day and are tainted by the way fewer bad apples. Law enforcement is like any other profession in the way that there's always really bad ones and really good ones. But people only focus on the bad ones and assume all officers are like that. They are people just like everyone else. If it really was just a few bad apples, it would be easy to remove them. If most cops are good, right? Not necessarily. People fail to realize that a majority of cops don't work with a majority of other cops. Reddit has this notion of ACAB cause they can't think for a second that just cause some random cop on day shift in luck did something unacceptable means that midnight shifter should know all the deets and should have somehow stopped them. It's my biggest gripe with ACAB. Now you show me a cop beating someone up and another cop standing by, then sure, those two cops are humans. Law enforcement, double-edged sword, because it attracts the best and the worst. The best in people who want to help, protect, and do good. The worst in people who want to exact authority over people. Power-hungry a-holes who are insecure and have short fuses and low tolerance for defiance. If you can't handle someone defying you without losing your ass, you shouldn't be a cop. Substance abuse mental health professionals seem to fall into one of the following categories. Wonderful, angelic and highly competent souls who truly want to help drug addicts, alcoholics. They are maybe 20% of the counselors. Optimistically. B. Burnt out, incompetent, lazy, don't care types. Another 60%. Or C. Absolute personality disordered, narcissistic, Machiavellian, sadistic types who really get off on the enormous power control they have over the lives and fates of the people under their care. Maybe another 20%. Your mileage may vary. The last group can do a lot of damage. Elementary school front desk administrator. The trouble is the S they see. My sweet as pie mother was one, and the number of non-custody parents who tried to check out a kid they had no right to take, and would get violent or aggressive when she said I can't let you by law, or the number of absolute psychos who would try to sneak their way into the school, or the number of parents who didn't come to pick up their kid for hours after school and she had to decide between traumatizing the kid by calling the police or sitting there for hours after her shift ended to ensure the kid wasn't alone outside the office. Dude, the job is rough. Tow truck drivers. At least 80% of all the tow truck drivers I've met have been felons, and about 98% have been shady dickheads. Yes. I had an accident on the highway a few years ago. It was a multiple car collision, and nobody got hurt. But I remember a couple of towing truck drivers literally fighting each other to take my car even though it was fully drivable. One of them told me that we just needed to get it out of the highway, and he would release it right away. I fell for it and let him take it. Well, he lied, he didn't want to release my car until I paid him $500. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end, you absolute Chad. You're a legend. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more of Reddit's top content. I'll see you in the next video, you beautiful people.